Welcome to Evolution on the Mic. I am your host, Ariana de la Cruz.
And I'm your co-host, Antoine Dove.
And we are back, season 7, Faith in Yourself, episode 4. You are not broken, you are becoming. In our last episode, y'all, we discussed playing small and how dimming our light to make others comfortable has been holding us back from God's calling in our life. We must break the agreement with fear, doubt, and self-rejection to be able to step into what God already has said about us. If you guys missed that episode, I highly recommend, as always, to watch it because it was such an impactful episode that definitely is leading into what we're talking about today. And I can totally see it helping you in your growth and everything that you are going through. So please don't miss that step. Don't miss what we spoke about because I'm very confident that it's going to help enlighten you in your journey. Okay. But on today's episode, we're going to be talking about reframing our struggles as part of your transformation. Because let's be honest, when you are going through the toughest parts of your transformation and you start to feel unworthy, you start to feel tired, you start to lose confidence in yourself, and ultimately, you feel so broken that you feel like you're unfixable. I'm sure we've all been there. I know, Lord knows that I have been there and currently am, okay? But we are here to tell you, and God's here to tell you, that you are not broken, that you are simply becoming the next version of yourself that God has called you to be. So I definitely recommend you guys tune in, stay locked in. But before we get into all of that, Antoine, how you been? How's it going?
I'm great. Adi, what's up? What's up? It's a new week podcast.
It is a new week.
And again, let's do it. Life's good, man. Like I'm so grateful. I feel like from the time we start this podcast to now, I'm glad we're talking about transformation. I feel like there's been so many transformations in my life. And as I continue to walk in my walk with God, there's things that he continues to reveal to me, things that a year ago probably wouldn't have made a lot of sense, but now it starts to make a lot of sense. Recently, I've been spending some more time with my mom, also spending some time with her church family, which if you don't have, and again, I mean, everyone, you have your own opinion about what you think about church, but I will say that fellowship is something that we all need. And fellowshipping with people who are like-minded, who are walking in their walk and journey with Christ is important because sometimes, and we'll talk about this even today, I mean, sometimes it feels lonely. And it's nice when you have someone who's gone through what you've gone through or who could be going through what you're going through right now as a source of encouragement. And I believe God speaks through people to share in your life things that maybe he's been trying to say to you and you haven't heard it another way, but hearing it from this person changes it or gives you a different perspective or shifts something in your life. And I can testify to that even on myself here on the podcast. There's been many conversations that Ariana and I've had where she's imparted something in me or have said something to me and I'm like, wow, I didn't think about that. And so this time I've been spending, with my mom and with her church family and stuff has been really impactful. And just recently they had a pastor's anniversary for their pastor who has been a pastor at their church for 15 years. And to see all of these people come to give honor and reverence to this man of God who has done so much for them in their lives was absolutely beautiful. It was such a beautiful event to be a part of. And it was in that moment that I started to realize like, wow, we all are playing a part in God's master plan. And when you lean and step into your gift that God has called you to do, and you do it and you play it full out, you give it your all, you don't waver. And again, these people, especially men of God and women of God who are sharing and preaching what God has put on their heart to share with their congregations, they're the head of attack of everything from the enemy. And so to see all that and hear all the things that this pastor, him and his wife have been through, and yet they continue to pour in every week into their congregation was just absolutely beautiful. So I know I went off on a tangent there, but I was kind of sharing what, for me has been relevant in my life recently, which in my walk with God has just been the importance of relationships. And so I'm so grateful for that.
No, I totally agree. And I'm so glad you're spending time with your mom and that, you're going to the church and, it's giving you a different perspective because, we can stay locked into ourselves and going through things and looking at it from a negative lens, right? We're only looking at it from our own perspectives. And But when we lock in with other people that are spiritual, that have been there, done that, they can help us see that what we're going through, it's all part of a plan, right? They can help us see that that's just there to grow us. That's just there to teach us a lesson. What is it that is trying to show us and teach us? Because, God doesn't do anything to harm us, even if it feels that way and it's painful. It's all nudging us so that we can be aware of what's going on. And hopefully we dive deep into them and start healing those parts, and start seeing, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I grow? So I'm so glad that, you're spending that quality time with your mom and in church and getting what you need out of it, because you just look like you're glowing today. You know what I mean? You just filled with so much energy. I don't know. You even look like you've lost a couple pounds too, Antoine. You know what I mean? I came on and I seen the camera and I'm like, oh my God, Antoine looks different. You know what I mean? And so it shows, right? It shows the things that we're doing on our day-to-day, who we're spending time with, how that can really impact us, negatively or positively. And I'm so glad to see that the things you're doing is, definitely helping you shine and, impacting you positively. And when it comes to like, relationships, I also feel like I'm in the same boat. You know what I mean? I've been meeting quite a few people. I recently did a guided tour to Manuel Antonio, which is like a park, and then it has like 2 beaches, and it has a lot of wildlife. Like you see sloths, you see all types of monkeys, crabs and deers and all these, animals, and a lot of them are specific to just Costa Rica that you only see here. So there was a whole bunch of animals that I saw. I took a bunch of pictures, and I went on a solo tour. I didn't book it with anyone, but I got to meet awesome people, right? And when they got on the bus, because I got on first, these 2 girls that hopped on, we were like, hey, how are you? Good morning. And like, where are you from? Oh, I'm from Florida. Me too. So funny that the girls that were on the same tour as me were from Florida. Like I was from West Palm, and they're from Stewart. Stewart is 45 minutes away from where I'm from. So I'm like, small world. And then another girl came in, and she's also from Florida, from Clearwater. So I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? This was so meant to be for me to book this the day that I did, and to be with them, and just to feel good, and to have people that are like-minded, that are similar journeys. Like they were also entrepreneurs, and just hearing about their struggles and how they got to where they're at, just building that community of like-minded people, was a pretty good weekend overall. I got to spend time with them, and they invited me again the next day to go hang out at their hotel and to be on the beach and, on their pool. So, you know what I mean? I think that it's very important, who you connect with, because it can impact you, positively, and you can have a good old time, or you can just surround yourself with maybe some haters, people that are just going to talk down to you or going to lead you towards the wrong path. And that's going to leave you feeling empty, feeling sad, and feeling unsure of yourself, right? And what you're doing with your life. So yeah, like I had a pretty great weekend, meeting some awesome people that I'm sure I'm going to stay in contact with, because they were only here temporary visiting for a couple days. But me, I'm in Costa Rica for at least a year, or longer, who knows? So, it's good to just meet different people.
I love
and
that.
hang out. Yeah.
I love
you. So that's been my weekend. And you know what? I've been up to just really pushing myself to go out more and step out of my apartment and do more guided tours, just to meet different people, and hopefully meet some people that are here more permanent, and not just these, people that are coming and going quickly. But if not, you know what I mean? I know that even if it's just temporary, people do leave a long lasting impression on you, even if it's only a day, know? So I'm open to that as well.
And you left an impression on them. Let's not forget that. I know you left an impression on them as well. And those are friendships that you will always, hopefully always have as, you continue to grow, in your walk.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. So Antoine, I know we came up with this episode.
Yes.
And, I was broken. Like, yeah, no, not at all. You're not broken. You're becoming. And I was like telling you, Antoine, earlier that, there's a lot of things that are going on in my life right now that I kind of feel like that ickiness of that pain of becoming. And sometimes I feel like I'm broken. Sometimes I feel like there's certain parts of me, right, that are unfixable, And I was like, I know other people can relate to this too. And I was like, Antoine, like maybe you can lead this one and then I can chime in, because I feel like I'm kind of in this boat right now as we speak. And I feel like you would have an outsider perspective to kind of break things down. So I'm gonna kind of leave the floor to you to just start us up and put the frameworks into perspectives. And, I'll chime in because I know that there's things in my heart that I'm sure can help other people in what they're going through right now.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of this topic of you're not broken, you're becoming, it definitely struck a chord with me because the times in my life where I felt broken or I felt like I'm unfixable, it's been at some of my lowest points in life. It's been where I feel like everything is crumbling around me, and everyone's journey is different. But for me, that's been my experience. Like when I felt broken, it's when I feel like I didn't really have direction. I didn't have guidance. Maybe I was seeking God's voice and I wasn't hearing anything, whatever it may be. Like there was things that I was looking for that I wasn't necessarily seeing or feeling. I felt like I was off track. I felt like maybe my life wasn't aligning with the way I expected my life to go. And what I've done in those situations, and sometimes is I've even pulled back from God, or I've pulled away from God, or I've tried to fix things on my own, or I've tried to figure it out on my own. And so I've loved this because I think there's things that I'm learning in, even thinking about this topic and thinking and related it back to myself that I know I'm going to take forward with this. And then everyone else that's listening, I know we're all going to be learning together. It makes me think about times in my life where I've had experiences where I've felt broken, and God transformed those experiences into something for me to help me grow. And so, like, I know some of you that have been following the podcast, and maybe some of you guys that are new to the podcast, which, by the way, let me stop and take a break here. Guys, we just reached 250 subscribers on YouTube for the podcast. I'm excited about that. Thank you guys so much for all the support. I think that's really cool. I meant to acknowledge that earlier, but completely just slipped my mind because we got into talking about things that's going on in our life. But thank you guys so much personally for just all of your support and being a part of this podcast. And if you're here for the first time, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We produce content every week to give you an opportunity to learn more about what we're doing here at Evolution of the Mic and join this freaking awesome family that we have here. But going ahead with kind of my own experience and my story. So as I was thinking about times when I've been broken and what God has taken me through, early on when I had lost my job, this was about almost 2 years ago now, it was a really tough time for me. God was really working on me, and I didn't know at that time how much he was working on me. To go from, having this salary of what I was making before and this lifestyle that I had created to losing everything was really hard for me. And that season, there was a lot of times where no matter what I tried and different things I would do, I felt like I wasn't seeing the success that I wanted to see or the success that I thought God had planned for me. There was times where I just kept continuing to go at it and doing it my way, thinking that my way was going to get the door open, when in reality, I needed to lean into God. I need to have some trust in him. I need to build and strengthen my relationship with him, which had been dormant for so many years. Like I hadn't talked to God in so long. And so having to take a step back and lean on my faith and really lean into God really taught me a lot around patience and how important it is to cultivate a strong relationship with our Godfather. Like, so important. And if you haven't done that yet, I'd encourage you to take some time to do it. Do it at your own pace. It doesn't mean you have to go from 0 to 100. Take your time. It can be something as simply as just saying, hey, God, I just want to say hello. Whatever it is, starting that conversation with him is important. And so what I learned through my experience was that although I felt broken in different things, I wasn't broken. What I was going through was a transformation. What I was going through was God preparing me for that next level. What I was going through was God said, in order for you to get to the level that I've created and designed you for, you need to first have a strong relationship with me. And if you don't build that relationship with me, there's no way you're getting there. And what I've seen over time is as I've continued to strengthen my relationship with God, the doorways that have opened, the people I've met, the things that have been poured into my life, the things people have said to me, the opportunities that present themselves continue to grow as my relationship with God grows. And so that was kind of like my experience that I went through. I don't know, Ari, if you've gone through something similar as we're talking about being broken, where maybe you've been broken at once. I know at the beginning you said this is kind of a season you're in right now, but kind of where are you at right now? Have you experienced that brokenness, and what's been your experience through that?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like, of course, there's been times in my life where brokenness has been, a big pattern, you know what I mean? And, thanks to God and his grace, I've been able to overcome a lot of the things. So, there's been times where I have felt broken. I have felt like, I'm not good enough, right? Like I'm just unfixable. And, God has came through and helped me help my faith with myself so that I can overcome. But I feel like, there's always going to be things that we need to tap into, right? Because there's certain stages in our lives where it's like, now this is the thing that you need to really work on. And when God is pinpointing certain things in your life that you need to work on, you are going to feel the pain of it, because that's the only way that you are going to realize that there's something wrong, right? It's going to have to come to light. It's going to need to come into your face for you to see it and be like, this is too painful for me to continue thinking that being this way is okay. Right. So for me right now, there has been things that have came up for me, right? And it's making me feel like everything is broken in my life, right? But really, no, it's just God has just been showing me certain aspects of me that is no longer working, right? Certain things that come into play specifically when it comes to having relationships with other people, as far as intimate relationships, and the person that comes out of me is not the healthiest version of me that to maintain a healthy relationship, right? And what that stems from for me is a deep seated trust issue, right? That I cannot trust other people when it comes to like trusting them with my heart, right? Because I have a big heart, and when I get vulnerable, I give too much of it away, too fast of it away, and it's like I can't really trust you with it. So, trust issue starts coming out, and a person that isn't the healthiest comes out, and those people end up vanishing from my life. They end up not wanting to stay because it's like, girl, you're not letting me in. You're not too vulnerable. You're not trusting. So, this is making me feel bad. Like it starts to affect that person, because it's like, I'm really here for you, but you're pushing me away with your distrustingness. So in that aspect of my life that I'm in right now, that is not, I'm grateful that something recently came up to show me that about myself, because it's becoming so icky within me that I know that this is the time that God wants me to lean into those things, to realize why I'm so distrusting, so that I can start working on that, so that I can start having trust with people when it comes to my heart, when it comes to more an intimate relationship, right? That I can be vulnerable, that I can trust God, that I can trust myself, that there's people that are going to come into my life that, are there for me for good, right? They're not there to take from me. They're not there to use me. They're not there to be there just because there's some interest, maybe some material interest that they might use me for, right? That I can trust that they're there for a good purpose. So I feel like, right now I feel broken, right? I feel like everything is like, God, I know you called me to be this person, and you called me to be trusting and to build community, and that I can be vulnerable and all these things, but I'm having this big issue in relationships, right? Where I'm very controlling, where I'm very like, what are you trying to do? I'm analyzing the person. I'm overly observing the person, and I'm not really giving them a chance to show that they're there for good, because my mind just goes to the negative. My mind just goes to, I got to protect myself, and in protecting myself, I'm blocking them away. They don't feel seen. They don't feel valued. They don't feel cared for. What happens? Well, then deuces to you. You don't, you know what I mean? You don't really see me. You don't value me. You don't need me, So why am I going to keep putting effort into this relationship? So those people end up, leaving my side, and I don't want to keep having that happen. So that's kind of like where I'm at, right now in the challenging times, where I'm starting to see this one aspect of my life that isn't perfect. And I'm starting to feel like everything in my life isn't perfect, but it's only this part of my life. And it is tough, and it is hard to decipher the bigger picture versus the small picture. It's like I'm putting the small picture in the big picture, And I am getting distorted views of myself, of my life, of my value, of my worth. And I don't think that God is doing any of that to harm me, or that God has forgotten about me, or that God is like, you're not worthy of the calling I have on your life. No, I think that all of this is happening for me to awaken that part of me and say, hey, we need to work on this. We need to heal this. This part of you is broken right now, but God wants me to know that with him, I can start repairing those parts, that I can start healing those parts, that I can start letting go of whatever pain caused me to think that being like that was, okay. You know what I mean? And I feel like, right now is my time to really work on that, to work on those aspects of my life and of myself. And, it's something that I'm learning, to get through. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm broken. I feel like it's unfixable. But then I feel God in his beautiful mist and his beautiful ways just shoulder me and tell me, hey, girl, don't worry. You know what I mean? I'm in this with you. I am bringing this to your awareness because it is something that I feel like you're ready to work on now, because you don't want to continue in this way, because you're seeing how it's affecting, your possible soulmate, your possible relationship that's for you. Like, this being like this isn't gonna work. People are not out trying to hurt you. Yes, it's good to be observant and to be smart and not let people take advantage of you. That's good to be that way. But there's moments and times where you can question things. There's a way to question things and not just automatically jump to the worst conclusion and have that person feel bad because they really are harmless. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh man, you just dropped so much in that it totally makes sense. And I appreciate you for being vulnerable and sharing something that is very intimate for you, but I think a lot of people can relate to, and when you were talking, what came up for me, and you guys know I love analogies, but what came up for me was, think about if you have a car, right? And you're a driver and you're driving a car and you have absolutely no knowledge about mechanics of a car, nothing. And let's say you're driving along and all of a sudden you hear a thump, 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 thump on your car, and you pull over on the side of the road and your tire's flat. But you know nothing about a car. You just see that your tire's flat. And from that tire, seeing it flat, you go, this car's bad. Something's wrong with it. I need to just throw this car away because the tire's flat. Now, we have knowledge that a tire is fixable, but for someone that's never driven a car before, who has no car knowledge, they may say, this car's bad. I should get rid of it. So what would someone encourage you to do? They'd encourage you to talk to a mechanic. In this case, our mechanic is God. When you go and talk to a mechanic, the mechanic goes, you have a flat tire. That's it. We can fix it. Easy breezy. I'm going to fix the tire. The car is off good again, and you're back to driving. So I ask you, how many of you are driving around with a flat tire and you're thinking that there's something wrong with your car, but all you really need to do is change the flat tire? And it brings up kind of this viral question that, we're constantly always thinking about, which is, when you are going through these healing journeys and when you see something that is broken, what is that first step that you take to healing when you feel like you are broken? Like, what is it? And in this scenario, I'm talking about going to a mechanic. Well, what that relates to in my mind is going to God. The first step you should be doing is you should be reframing this situation that you're going through. You should be looking at it from the eyes in which God sees things. God is looking at it and he sees the flat tire. You're looking at it and you see a bad car. There's a big difference between a bad car and a flat tire. Getting rid of a car is a lot more expensive than fixing a tire. And so it's important that as we're going through these experiences and we're having these tough times, or we're struggling with something that God is trying to grow us in, that we understand that what's happening in that moment, that struggle, is just God refining us and who we are in his kingdom. God is refining us. He's purifying us. He's taking something that he knows we need to change in order for him to use us in an even bigger way. And for some of us, we may not be ready for that. And I know for me, that's part of why I may pull back, or I may have that fear, is because, one, I don't know what's going on. And two, I'm starting to lack faith and knowing that God's going to take care of me. I'm starting to want to get control. I want to be in control. But no. God's like, no, take your hands off the wheel. No, I got you. All I need you to do is trust me. And the more we lean in and we start to reframe and we see things, then kind of like what you were saying, Ariana, where you see that little speck and that speck becomes so big that that becomes all you focus on. When we start to look at things through God's eyes, that speck is only God refining us. That speck is only a small piece of the bigger picture, because there's so many other things that God's doing in your life that is having an impact, that's taking you to the next level, that's opening new doorways for you, that's putting you in the rooms that you need to be in. And that speck, to me, is just a distraction. God's working. He's always working on us. There's never a time when he's not working on us. Never. There's always going to be something that God is trying to refine for us, because God has a plan and a purpose, and it's perfect. All he's looking for us to do is when he says, hey, this is something I need you to work on, we say, okay, God, what do you need me to do? You know? And so I wanted to bring that up because as we think about that, right, like it's so important that we reframe. It's so important that we understand and look at things from the same way that God is looking at things, and that we understand that what God is taking us through is a process. It's always going to be a process. It's always something that he's taking us through struggles for us to learn something. And I'm sure, Ariana, there is something you've learned, or even I think when we were talking earlier, you were telling me some stories about conversation you were having with Lavelle that you guys learned through that process, right?
Yeah. Well, one, I want to go back to what you said because it keeps playing in my mind, and I feel like it's important.
Let's do it.
That the speck is a distraction. You said that and it hit where it needed to hit, because it's so true. You know, God, like the enemy, the parts of us that are maybe scared of to move forward, or that isn't looking at the bigger picture. We're just so focused on maybe that one mistake we did, or that one area that feels broken, that those things we need to work on, and we just stay focused on the little speck. Meanwhile, there's this beautiful big picture that is within the speck, but we're just like leaning into the speck, and that's all we see, like the speck. And it's like God just wants us to take a step back, like back it up a bit, and look at the bigger picture of everything that I've done in your life, of all the transformations that you've already overcome, right? The changes that you've already made, the struggles that you already overcame. And when you look at the bigger picture and you stand far back enough, you could barely see the speck. So what was once all you saw now is like barely visible to you. And all you see is like everything else that you've already been able to accomplish and do and overcome. So then that speck, when you do lean back into it, it's like, I know what to do with you now. I know that God got it. I know that God is going to help me change the things that I need to change, because I got this beautiful picture. You're just a little speck in the bigger grand big things of it. You're just a small speck in the grand picture that God has for us in our lives. And, I think that that's kind of like what you said is the distraction, is that the enemy wants us to just see the speck as everything. Everything in your life is going downhill. Everything in your life isn't going to work. Everything in your life that you're trying to do is really not going to happen, because you see this big, ugly speck. And we just stay there looking at it like, yeah, you're right. I'm never going to change that aspect, or that circumstance is never going to change, and nothing is going to move in my favor. And, that's when, it's beautiful to have community. You know what I mean? It's good to talk it out with someone that can help you be like, girl, but look what else you've accomplished. Look at everywhere that you've already done. Look at all the things you already overcame. You know what I mean? Look at all the progress that you've already had, because when I first met you, this was you and you and you. But now you are a different person in a lot of areas. So in that speck, in the same way that all those areas you've changed and you've been able to transform, that is no different. But the enemy is going to make you think that is very different, because that is what's happening in the current moment. And it feels very real, and it feels very painful, and it will make you want to shrink, as we were talking about in our last episode. It's going to make us feel like we're not good enough, like God made a mistake in the calling that he has for us. And God did not make a mistake. God doesn't make any mistakes. What God wants us to do is to know that we can lean on him, that speck will become part of the beautiful picture, where that's blemish that doesn't feel like it goes in there. He's going to fix it and make it just perfect, so that's like, oh, the piece to that puzzle that's in that picture frame that is needed. because we need to give it to him for him to change our hearts, for him to change our ways, for him to change our character, for him to change our ability to see that we are capable, that this can heal for us. And God will do that. You know what I mean? Holding on to it, staring at it, fussing about it, it's just going to make that speck seem bigger. Letting it go, saying, God, like, I know that, you know, you're in control of this area of my life. Like, you're calling it into my awareness now for a reason. You're calling it into my awareness because you know that I am ready, that I am capable at this moment to see the other side of that, you know, and God is going to help you through that. There's nothing that we need to do. Like, there's nothing that we need to force for those changes to occur. Just leaving it in his hand and leaning into him and trusting in him, you know, trusting in ourselves that we are capable because we've done it already, because God has helped us through that already. And we've been able to overcome so much that those aspects that we think is so broken and so unfixable, that's a lie. You know, they're not unfixable, right? That is things that we can definitely alter within ourselves when we become aware of it, right? Know the pain that is causing us to stay that way and make another decision. Like, I'm not going to be that way anymore. You know, I'm going to get the help that I need. God helped change my heart in this.